The next program will ask an essential question. How can fashion become resistance when women's bodies are controlled?
In Iran, women have long challenged compulsory hijab laws through protest, style, and self-expression.
Our keynote speaker is an Iranian fashion designer, Farnaz Abdoli, whose work and activism have led to persecution, imprisonment, and exile.
Before the keynote, we'll hear a short introduction by the two co-founders and co-directors of Artists at Risk, also known as AR. AR is a global network of safe havens for artists under threat. Give a warm welcome to Marita Muukkonen and Ivor Stodolsky.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Marita Muukkonen. I'm Ivor Stodolsky, as you see above us. We'd like to just briefly introduce Artists at Risk, and as we do so, we'll show you a few slides. Artists at Risk is a mondial, we call it, international NGO at the intersection of art and human rights. We've been in existence for about 13 years, and we work with artists who are under extreme or high risk, who have to find another place to go. They're under threat from terrorism, they're under threat from war, they're under threat from persecution, or from other forms of prejudice and being followed, and we have to get them out.
Artists at Risk started in 2013 here in Helsinki with the support of city of Helsinki. But as you see from the slide, Artists at Risk has grown to global network. Since 2013, we have hosted almost 1,200 artists at risk. And this means principal applicants. They also have family members, they have pets, and basically it takes lots of work to provide temporary relocations to artists at risk. And with temporary relocation, we mean that we provide a residency from 3 to 12 months in professional artistic context. We always work with our peers, we always work with our colleagues, like Farnaz Abdoli is here today with us from Artists at Risk Munich. And it takes lots of solidarity from hosting organizations also to provide care and facilitate artists at risk. So we have grown as a peer movement over the years.
Yes, and as you can see, amongst those peers are over 330 different hosting organizations on almost all continents. So when we say that our team has done it, we mean, well, it's the secretariat of around 15, depending on the funding situation, 15, 20 people working in the secretariat, which is a global remote online office. But we have hundreds of people in the localities working with the artists on the ground, doing the hard work. We do it here, our staff in Helsinki does it here, but they do it on all these continents. We have an Artists at Risk network in Africa, for example. We've relocated people from Goma to Zanzibar, or from Zimbabwe to Zambia, from Nigeria to Zambia, etc. Careful. In Latin America, we just launched something called the Ecologists at Risk Network, which is the first network globally to host ecologists who are culturally related, which means you include indigenous people, you include all kinds of forms of art and culture that are at risk due to mafias, state-sponsored terrorism or oppression of indigenous people, ecological kind of disasters and so on. People who are fighting those crimes are under risk. We help them in Latin America. And there's other things we do. Mainly, we start in Europe, so if you see the blue points in Europe, there's really hundreds of people who have helped us there, different institutions.
As said, Artists at Risk works with cities like Helsinki, and you see there in the list also Artists at Risk Munich. And we are really happy that there are cities which are providing funding to host Artists at Risk, but it's not just a city, it's a network of institutions. Like in Helsinki, we have worked since 2013. We work with Finnish National Theatre, we work with Theatre Info Finland, we work with contemporary art museums. It's a whole professional peer support network. We are not going to go to its more details right now, since we want to welcome Farnaz Abdoli on the stage.
Just a moment before we do, because we want this dense ecosystem that we were just talking about that exists in Helsinki also exists in every one of these cities and in every one of those networks we were talking about. And maybe we should just give a word about Munich, since that's what we're introducing our resident from. AR Munich was founded when the city of Munich made a decision, and any city all over the world can do this, say, we want to host one artist at risk for 12 months, for 3 months, and they did it. And that's how Farnaz, who first escaped Iran in 2017 and spent 7 or 8 years in Turkey without being able to leave the country because she had no passport, we finally managed to get her through a very complicated system of a laissez-passer to France. In France, again, further problems confronted us, and today she is with us here. So Farnaz Abdoli, please welcome us. Come to the stage. Welcome.
Hello. The first time I stood in front of a large audience, I was 9 years old in Iran. And I had written a letter to God and begged them to forgive me because of my sins. Because I was born and grew up in a system and in a country they used to terrify children about hell, and if you wear some wrong clothes or if you don't cover your hair, then later in hell you will hang on your hair, by your hair. And it was actually my nightmare when I was a child. So my teachers and my school's authorities really liked it, my letter to God, and they started taking me to many events and ceremonies to talk about how you can connect with God for adults. And yeah, but to be honest, as a 9-year-old child, I think it was really complicated to imagine a really cruel something with lots of power who just created us to burn in hell because of my clothes. And a bit later, I discovered my mom's fashion journals, because my mom was a tailor and she had lots of fashion journals and magazines that I used to watch them and discover another world, another universe, a window to another shape of womanhood and beauty and freedom. All the people were beautiful there, and their skin and hairs glued, and it was something I couldn't see around myself in Iran, especially after Iran-Iraq war. Everything was completely gray and boring. So perhaps it was the moment I fell in love with fashion. And I said, okay, I prefer to go to hell and burn, but being part of this beautiful world, fashion. So when later I raised up and I became 23, I had this idea why we cannot dress up and wear what we want in a street, and why we have to just always wear same things in usually dark colors, some mantio, and usually are really ordinary and boring. So I started working on this idea, and it was for a long time that I used to create and draw something on paper and give it to my mom to sew that for me and my sister. So I had this attention from people. Always they ask me, where did you buy your clothes? And it's so beautiful and something like that. And then I said, okay, what if I make it more, and if I created a brand and make an exhibition to show my works to others, and let's see what people think about that. And then I made my first exhibition, and suddenly it became so bold and successful. I sold out all the production that I had. I started with kind of 60 pieces in my first exhibition, and in the last year that I had to leave Iran, my brand was producing more than thousands of pieces every season. And so it means the society of Iran and young women, they were ready for that change. They really wanted to do that, wanted to wear colorful and differently. And something had changed after that. And then government became really sensitive about me. They showed my work in the parliament of Iran as a person who tried to ruin hijab and Islamic rules and the ideology they had for women's body controlling. And as long as I was working and my brand was going to be bigger and bigger, I had more trouble with the system. And many times arresting, many times closing my studios, my showrooms, until 2016. 2016, they attacked me in my house in Tehran. And they took all my documents and they covered my eyes, and then they arrested me. And I couldn't believe that. All the time I had this feeling like I'm not in a reality. How is possible? Maybe they got me wrong, but it was real. And I was in solitary prison more than a month. And every day questioning me about who paid you, USA or Britannia or Western. They paid you to ruin hijab, and they want to make moral corruption for women and young girls, and lots of really crazy questions that usually I really couldn't get it serious, but it was serious for them. And then I released on a bail by my family until court, the main court. And in the court, they sentenced me for 5 years prison, and also banned from living country and banned from working in fashion and every other things about fashion and whatever I was doing. And for me, it meant like you only can die in this country. So that moment, it wasn't easy for me to decide about that, but I left country, my own hometown, because what could I do if I couldn't work in something I love and something I created? And they took everything. They took my brand, they took all my spaces I had, and everything I had and everything I created in years. So I left Iran to Turkey. And in Turkey, I had no documents because they already took my documents in Iran, my passport and other things. And then even many organizations around the world, they promised me, we will bring you out of Turkey very soon, and you even don't have to wait more than 6-7 months. It became 7 years in Turkey. And in Turkey, I had no right to do anything. I had no right to work. And if I wanted to travel, I had to go and get a permit from the immigration office. And it was super difficult for a person who has started traveling since I was 18 around the world. It was exactly the same as a prison, just a bigger one, and super hard time there. But I started working again and again, and I stood up again, and I created my own organization. Previous before, yeah, my organization Pharaoh Project, who I try to educate local women in Iran in some local area that they don't have access to education, and gather them together and make a community for them. And while they are doing some handicrafts and art things, also train them about women's rights. And somehow in a country like Iran that officially is really difficult to someone out of Iran create an organization like that about education, then system will be sensitive and they will arrest everyone. So it's not that easy. But we made it with help of some of my friends in Iran, and we made some documentary about that, also documentary videos, and we made it finally. And in partnership with IREX, an educational organization in USA. And then in the second slide, you see I redesigned and reshaped the fabrics and the textile and the material that came from the workshops in Iran. And I made something modern and kind of contemporary from traditional stuff that they used to wear it in traditional ceremonies and weddings, just because I wanted to bring it out of Iran and show everyone. And then, after Turkey, after Turkey, as dear Ivor mentioned, that Artists at Risk supported me and helped me to come out of Turkey by a talent visa and travel document to France. And it was the time I was in France. I had some talk for supporting Iranian women, and also some lecture in fashion academies and university, and also some interviews. And in a short time, I tried to continue the way I was doing all the years. But in France, also, I stuck in a bureaucratic system. Even they issued the talent visa, it wasn't that easy to stay there more. And then, again, by Artists at Risk, I moved to Germany, in Munich, and I was in a residency by Artists at Risk in collaboration with the city and an artist cultural center, Halle 6. And there, again, I continued the way I was coming. I had some exhibition and presentation with the works I was doing in the last years in Iran, from Iran, and I showed the documentaries to people, and it was a really nice experience, and I had some other opportunity to show what we did in the organization. And also, please, next one. Yeah, it's done? Okay, it's done. Okay, and now after the residency by Artists at Risk, I'm still in a residency in Munich, another residency, and I'm working on next exhibition about also democracy and geopolitics and how art and all this can be related to each other. But what I learned in all this year that I work is all the things that happened to me in Iran was about how the systems try to control women's body. You know, when I was younger, like 15 years ago, when I started working, every time people ask me why the system and regime is so sensitive about you. Maybe it's because you wanted to add colors or floral patterns or what. And to be honest, that moment I had no clear answer to them because it wasn't clear for myself too. But now I completely recognize that it's all about women's body controlling, and it's exactly what happened in woman life freedom movement some years ago. We saw, and the world saw, how it's important for the system to control women's, and then they can control the society, and then they can all the time tell women and young girls that, yeah, you are under our control, you cannot think independently, you cannot be independent because we don't let you, and then it will be like that. And you know, in Iran, resistance, maybe when we talk about fashion all around the world, we think about luxury, about beauty, or something like that. Something is happening around the world. But in Iran, it means resistance by new generation, by young girls. They choose what they wear every day when they are going out. They chose to put out their scarf. And it's not simply about religious. It's about ideology and how they are against the ideology, try to tell them you are nothing. We decide for you. You cannot decide for yourself. Because the system knows well, very earlier than me or many other people. They know when people imagine themselves differently and free, it's really hard to bring them back to silence. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you, Farnaz.
Thanks a lot, Farnaz Abdoli, who actually is our first fashion designer at risk, which we are hosting. And therefore, I'd like to ask, you talked about women's role in the Iranian society, and many of the mass movements in Iran and protest movements were also triggered by women. Like in 2017, when you had to leave the Girls of Revolution Street, Women Life Freedom Movement. We know that now it's Mohammad Nargesi is now in the hospital on the edge of of the death because she doesn't get support. So what is your take that we know that the situation in Iran is extremely difficult right now? 1,500 people have been hung already this year, the dissidents. That what is the possibility for civil society in Iran to try to resist regime when the war is going on, and how can we support also Iranian civil society in this moment, and not to forget those people who have been mass murdered in Iranian society and are being killed right now when the case is in the war and in the bombs.
Thank you for mentioning all this. And yeah, I think all the people that they are sitting here and listening to this story, they can make awareness about all these subjects to some friends, some families they have, because it's difficult because of the lack of internet in Iran right now. It's really difficult to get some news from inside of Iran, and I think it's really important for me to be my people's voice and talk about them, to not let them to being forget. Yeah, and I think also supporting some organization and whoever is working about all this, and they try to help bringing people out of danger and risk. So as you do, and yeah.
Thank you. We have very little time left, but I mean, as Marita said, the normal level of killing is increasing to 1,500 in the first months of this year in Iran. That's the normal level. Last year was 1,000 in a year. This is now the first 4 months, 1,500 people hung. But of course, in January, we had killings on the level of 25, maybe 40, maybe 70,000 people. How can you live with this? I understand that you are both opposed to the regime and opposed to what you fear might be another authoritarian regime that might come if the current regime falls. Where do you stand? How do you deal with that, those two opposing horrible forces?
Actually, as we talked about this, to be honest, it was really difficult time for me in the last month, because I really felt small, and I really felt I have no power to do anything, to be honest, because it's really difficult to see how your people are hurting every day and you cannot do anything. And you know, you can feel that pressure on yourself also. And yeah, to be honest, I really felt small about all this. I just tried to talk about them, about what is happening in Iran, to whoever I could, in Germany, in France, in Denmark, you know, in all these last months. And I just tried to talk and make awareness about what is going on in Iran, because, you know, we are under lots of propaganda news, and it's really difficult to know which one is right and which one isn't. So I just try to talk about this as an Iranian who really knows from, you know, kilos from my parents, my friends who are living in Iran yet, to tell others, yeah, it's going on in Iran, and it's horrible.
Well, thank you very much, and we have very good news that hopefully we'll be able to see you next in France, because your German residency is coming to an end, and we're hoping it's going to work. So wish Farnaz Abdoli great luck in continuing her great work as a fashion designer in Europe, and maybe one day back in Iran.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Farnaz.
Welcome, everybody in the audience. We have a discussion, and you have a possibility to ask questions from Farnaz in this lampier area. So please join us if you have any questions to Farnaz or us. So thanks a lot for joining us today.